Hey guys, in this lesson we are going to look at scale formulas. These are essentially recipes for the scales. If you've seen any of my other videos before, you know I talk about scale formulas. Now if you have my book, there is an addendum in the end of the book that I put in here with all the common scale formulas and common chord formulas for that matter. So you can also refer to this if you have the book and just work some of these guys out. Now I'm going to show you what all this business here actually means. And the first thing we're going to look at is this major scale, or the Ionian mode if you want to think about it in that way. The major scale is the master template that we are going to use to help us build a template for any other scale. So we know that the major scale goes root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and then we get a repeat of the root note at the octave there. We know as well that it goes up step, step, half step, 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 half step. So that is the formula for the major scale. And this is really important for us to know how this works. And you can think this as two semitones, and a semitone, two semitones, two semitones, two semitones, and a semitone. So you could think of it as 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. If you want to think of it in half steps, then that can be a useful way to think about it. Now here, I'm going to show you, if I write this out without modifying it yet, because what I want to do is find out the minor scale formula and how this formula comes about. We are always going to be assuming that this is the boilerplate template that we use. Root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. We'll put that on there. But the difference in the minor scale, the natural minor that is that this has a flattened third, a minor third, if you want to think of it in that way. We've got a fourth, we've got a fifth, we get a flat six, and we get a flat 7 also. What I've done is taken this third here and lowered it down here. When we flatten a note, it goes down. Now, some people get a little bit confused sometimes between flat and minor. Even though this note is going to become a minor third, we're only thinking of it as minor if it is in the context of it being a chord. So we get root, second. Now if you remember that we had a whole step in between there, but because we've lowered this 1 fret, we get a half step there. And in lowering that down there, this half step between the third and the fourth becomes a full step. So that's how we distribute these notes. And you can see that the intervals, the gaps between these notes are altered and they change around. Between the fourth and the fifth, that's not changed. So that's going to be exactly the same, as you can see if we transfer that information across there. Going from the fifth to the sixth here, we can see that this is the fifth, this is the sixth. That's a major six. This is going to be a minor six or a flat six, because major and minor intervals travel around in pairs. If you've not seen my video on that, watch this here. Because we've lowered this 1 fret, however, this becomes a flat 6, so we get a half step in there. Because we've done that, it's altered the distance here. Now that is a 7th, so we have to flatten this 7th, which means we've come down a fret. We've come down a fret here, or a half step, so that means we get a full step there. An easy way to think about it is the flat 7 is always going to be a tone away or a step away from the 8th or the octave there. So we can see how that structure has changed from this root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. I think what's an interesting one to do here is also the Lydian. This is a wonderful one for showing you how we alter the formula for the major scale to fit the scale formula that we need. The only difference between major and Lydian is that fourth is raised. We get a sharp 4 there, and that's the easiest way to think of Lydian. Just think of Lydian as being a major scale with a sharp 4. So we know we're going to get a whole step there. We know we're going to get a whole step there. Now here's where it gets tricky. We've got a third and we've got a fourth here. This third is major and this fourth here is a perfect fourth, but this is a sharp 4 here, as you can see. And in between the third and the fourth we get a half step, which means by sharpening this, because we're going sharp, it means we're going up. We're raising that note up 1 fret or half step. That means that this becomes a whole step. You can see that we get 1 tone, 2 tones, 3 tones, which is also called a tritone. And this is what the sharp 4 is, guys. We can think of the tritone as sharp 4. It's another way of thinking about the same distance. It works out the same on the fretboard, and that's a useful idea to carry around in your head. So sharp 4 to a 5. Before it was a whole step between the 4 and the 5, but now what happens is we get the half step there. 5th and the 6th, going to be the same. 6th and 7th, going to be the same. And the 7th to the 8th, I made a boo-boo there, is going to be a half step again. Between this note and this note, it's always going to be 12 half steps chromatically. So if we added up these steps and half steps, we're always going to get the same number. We're always going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, add the 2 halves, and that gives us 6. Let's do it on the major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Add these 2 half steps, that's going to give us 6. So we always end up with 6. Another mode that I think is really useful to understand straight off the bat, the Mixolydian mode. This belongs to chord 5. We can think of this as chord 5. This is chord 4. Minor scale, we're thinking of this as being chord 6. Major scale, we're thinking of this as being chord 1. Okay, so Mixolydian, let's take the scale formula. Root, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Now, what's the difference between Mixolydian? Mixolydian is a major scale with a flat 7. It's as simple as that. That's what I was doing there. I was already thinking Mixolydian there. Let's go up. Root to 2nd, same as major scale. 2nd to 3rd, same as major scale. 3rd to 4th, no alteration, so it's exactly the same as the major scale. 4th to 5th, that's the same as the major scale. 5th to 6th, same as the major scale. However, look at what's gone on here. The 6th to the 7th, ordinarily, that's a whole step, but because we're flattening the 7th, this becomes a half step. Because it's dropped down a fret or a half step this way, what that means is it's opened us up to have a flat 7th to the 8th or the octave, which is the same as the minor scale. So you can see how that works out there. You start to see the pattern with these scale formulas. Once you understand how scale formulas work, this means you can work out any of the exotic scales that are out there. They're in my book here. You can see there are things like the altered scale, the Phrygian dominant, all this useful scales information here. And this is important because really the main thing that we need to learn is the diatonic scale formulas. And when I mean diatonic, I mean major and minor and the modes. So we need major, minor, and that's natural minor, and we have the modes. Then what we need to learn is melodic minor, and there are modes of the melodic minor, and then we need to learn the harmonic minor and the modes. So these all are ingredients. Remember, that's what I say what a scale is. The scale is your ingredients, and these ingredients, when we mix them up, these make the chords that create the emotional sound that is specific to the scale that is underneath it.
Hey up guys, Ricky here with a quick message. If you didn't know, I have written a book. There's links for how to get to that in the video description below, and I'll put a little card up here so that you can click on that if you want to support my work here on the channel.